Clubhouse.
Welcome back to Escaping Gilead, Pod Clubhouse's continuing coverage of Hulu's The Handmaid's Tale. This is for the 6th episode of the 6th season called Surprise!
This is Caroline.
And this is Paul.
Surprise!
Surprise!
Nicholas Marie! I can't believe you! My God. We got to go right to it, Paul. I can't play around. I can't be like ignoring the elephant in the room. We're going right for the closet scene, y'all. Right.
Jumping right to the end.
Yes.
Is this qualify as a surprise, or is it more like it should be like a subtitle, like I am Nick's lack of surprise?
Well, I mean, okay, so listen. If you guys have been listening to our podcast this whole time, I've been real worried about old June flying too close to the sun with all of her proclamations that Nick is always going to come through for her. Just every time
you have said that over and over.
He is just steady as the day is long, right? And so I felt concerned the whole time, like this is going to bite June in the ass. I just feel it. She's too all in, and there's too many smirks about Nick's got my back. That moment, though, holy crap. I mean, and they nailed it. Like, they had Wharton say over and over, like, Nick told me this, and Nick told me this, and Nick told me, like, to the point where, like, there's no way he could be like, oh, no. I just, like, pointed at something like, no. Obviously, Nick spilled all the beans. Now, if you're Nick, what do you think? I mean, did you have a choice? Did you have any choice when Wharton calls you on the carpet and says, hey, obviously we all know Belle must have been the squealer, right?
Belle, yes.
Had to be. So he's called on the carpet about being at Jezebels. Wharton gets this phone call and it comes back like completely pissed off. And like this very much feels like last straw. Like we've already had this whole no man's land nonsense. We've already had this guy at the hospital die. Like you are nothing but suspicious. I mean, did Nick have a choice?
Nick is a guy who, for all we know, has needed to walk on like the knife's edge for a long time. And determining whether or not you are pinging someone's bullshit meter is a big part of being able to survive on the knife's edge, right?
Yeah.
We know through their exchanges that he has needed to serve up Commander-in-Law several lies in the past few episodes. And I think he knew that his bullshit meter was off the chart tonight.
Yeah.
And any lie that wasn't rooted in 75% truth was going to be detected right then.
I also think it had to be such a big chunk of information that he gave that it almost had to blind Wharton to continuing to go down the road of questioning Nick more.
Yeah.
Like it needed to be such a jaw dropper bit of information that he's going to tell Wharton about the Jezebel attack, about these letters, about all this stuff that he's figuring out supposedly at Jezebels, which is like kind of hilarious because, you know, like it's like we're acting like he's such a sleuth and it's like, no, he's not. He didn't figure out anything. I mean, he was just told this, but I mean, he had to serve it up on a platter to his father-in-law, right? I mean, like this entire story is about survival. And I think they did a really good job of going back and showing those flashbacks of Nick and June in the garage apartment, all of that stuff, partially to remind all of us of their relationship, you know, because it's been a long time since we saw that version of them.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen this version of June on the run needing Nick's help 90% of the story. But there was that other part where they did have pillow talk. They were sitting there talking about their past and their futures. And it was a good reminder, I think, to us audience members that there was more of a foundation there. This wasn't just this fleeting little affair that didn't mean anything to anybody. This was really something that both of them needed desperately at the time, and that everybody has to do what they have to do to survive. I don't know how audiences are going to feel, if they're going to feel angry at Nick or if they're going to understand. So. Tell me.
I think they will do both. I think it's possible to be angry with him and understand. I mean, that 75% truth that I mentioned a second ago, I think omits the identity of June and Moira, which is a big deal.
Of course. Yes. Very true. I would certainly hope it did.
Yeah.
It had to.
It had to.
Yes.
Otherwise, there'd have been like sirens blaring, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. So in many ways, he did still protect June, you know.
Yeah.
What do you think about the entire way that this unfolded? We have, you know, Nick come bolting into Serena Joy's house with this whole plan of like, let's get out of here. And that really big line of I feel like you're the only good thing in my life. What?
Which is weird because everything in his life is fairly complicated. And June is also, because she's kind of married currently.
Kind of.
You
Yeah.
know?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, kind of married. Yeah. Sort of. I don't know. Her and Luke, what do you think of their relationship at this point? I mean, what are they actually? I feel like they're just two people with the same mission. They both want to get their daughter back. But I don't feel like they're spouses, like in any actual way. Like I don't see them comforting each other. I only just see them as like they work together on a common goal.
They've had a lot of time apart,
Yeah.
you know, and I think a lot happened during that 2 months.
Oh my gosh, why are you even talking about that? I'm talking about the years.
Well,
The years of all of this.
that part of it seems to have been more transformative for Luke in particular, because they were playing house in Toronto for a while.
Kinda, yeah.
June was fairly detached from that, if you recall, like
Yes.
coming home bloodied and
Yes.
whatnot.
Well, she was still off doing her own thing. I mean, that's kind of the main thing. I was like, they're not like together.
Yeah.
They just have this goal of getting Hannah back, which is totally understandable. Okay, so Nick coming in with this whole, like, let's run away, let's have this adventure together.
The flashback helps remind us what the context for going to Paris would be.
That was good. Again, thank goodness they gave us that flashback for some stability here to understand, like, what in the world is this conversation even about? Now, this was all just Nick flailing, right? I mean, there's nothing to any of this. Like, if June was like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, definitely.
They couldn't do anything.
No,
right?
he had just gotten off of the fire with Wharton, right?
Yeah.
And did he just have go bag papers like ready to go at any time? That could be. I mean, he's a squirrely guy, but it's a lot to buy.
I don't even know what these papers are. I mean, I don't know. You guys, that's a part of the world building that, again, unclear. Like, can a commander create papers to be able to go to France with a no-name woman? Like,
Yeah.
I just don't see any of that happening. Like, Gilead would never allow any of that business. Speaking about flights, so like talking about our whole Nick situation, that was insane and a total jaw dropper. Okay, but talking about flights, let's go over for a second and like pick up where we kind of started the story, which was our Lawrence, June, Moira situation. So I mean, we do start off this episode with them hopping out of that trunk, and we have that back and forth between Joseph and June. What did you think of that? You could have done more to try to let the planes in to get Hannah. No, you could have done more to save Eleanor. What did you feel about this?
These are people that have hurt each other through inaction, right? Kind of the presence of the person to the situation is a little bit different. I mean, June was right there with Eleanor, arm's reach.
Yeah.
Whereas Joseph and the attack on the mission to retrieve Hannah, that's not as simple as patting Eleanor on the back or whatever she needed to clear her airway that night. So I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison, but it still hurts. You know, like it's still, you hurt me, I hurt you.
And it also reminded me of just their relationship in general, of like this back and forth, this, you know, like I have power, but I've had power too. If you look at it on like the face value, it always seems like that, like the June character should have like no power at all. But there was those moments, like the Eleanor moments, that you couldn't really account for if you were a commander like Lawrence, right? You couldn't account for that. Had I treated her better, had I been different with June, maybe June would have felt compelled to save my wife. You know, like we don't really get into that very often because it's just seemed like the commanders have all the power and everybody underneath them has no power. But that's not true. In situations, they do have power. And that's kind of what that conversation reminded me, is that June has had some little bits of power over Lawrence over the years.
Yeah.
Do you think Lawrence is all in on this, like, you have basically no choice because they are going to put you on the wall, but to go along with some sort of plan that Mayday comes up with or that we work together on?
I think he is, but because he has no other choice, and I don't think he thinks it's going to work.
I feel like he is, but I also feel like there's a good shot that he puts some sort of twist on it. If Mayday comes to him with plan A, it's going to be like plan A and a half or something that actually ends up happening. I don't know why exactly, besides just to say that I don't think Lawrence is such a passive participant. You know, I don't think that he would just be like, oh, sit back and let you guys do what you're going to do. He has to add something to it.
If there's a way to look out for himself that they're not going to do with whatever their plan is, then I think he's going to add that layer to it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, why would he just go along with whatever they have in mind? But the way that he sort of resigned during his conversation with Naomi during the chess lesson later, he's like, it doesn't matter. You know, and she's like, what do you mean it doesn't matter? And he's like, it does. You'll find out. I think he thinks whatever they're going to do probably isn't going to work. But.
Oh, funny. So I took that conversation completely differently. I took that conversation to be, don't worry about what all the commander families think about us because they'll all be dead.
Oh, you thought that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. And you took it a different way? Like, I thought he was saying, you don't need to worry about other people judging us. They're not going to be around here to be judging Angela.
Yeah, because
that's how I took it. You took it an opposite way? Like,
yeah, I did.
Oh, tell me what?
His demeanor wasn't that, oh, my friends are going to be dead in a little bit. It was more like...
Oh, I wasn't saying it like that.
I wasn't saying you did. I was saying that he wasn't saying it in a way that seemed to mean that he was lamenting the deaths of his colleagues. I was taking it as he felt just down, period. And I took that to be like his own self-preservation sense was in a spot where he didn't see a way out of it.
And I took it, just to be clear, I took it totally differently in terms of like, he is privy to this plan or an idea of a plan that
yes.
that would kill all these other commanders and maybe their families. I don't know. I don't know how far spread this plan is going to end up being. And so therefore, it doesn't matter what he teaches Angela because no one's going to be around to judge him for it. He's going to be the Grand High Poobah. So he doesn't have to answer to anybody else.
I mean, that's more uplifting. I like Joseph. And
I never even thought about it the other way. So that's interesting.
Well, and they're talking about the way that a knight plays chess.
Okay.
That piece, if you're not familiar, moves in an L shape, whereas every other piece moves in pretty much straight lines. You can kind of rationalize.
Okay, so what do you get from that? Is L for Lawrence?
No.
What? You're laughing, but no. What do you think it means? Why would we talk about the knight that moves in an L?
Well, I think it's that they're just harder to account for. Like,
okay,
because you can think of like a rook moves in a straight line, a bishop moves in diagonals, et cetera, but the knight can move 3 up and 2 over to the left or the right, or it can move 2 up or 3 over to the left or the right, or the opposite, right? So it's combinations that it can play on the board are a lot harder to account for, you know, just.
And you don't think that represents Lawrence?
I think well, not the L part of it in sort of the literal sense, but I do think, yes, that does account for the way that he's going to think about what you said earlier. The way to protect himself is going to be like kind of like around a mental corner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But I took it, just so that we're clear, more negatively, that he didn't think it was going to work.
And I took it like he's going to be the king of the country, so he doesn't give a shit what anybody thinks about him and his kids.
Well, I mean, by the end of the episode, we do know that Plan A, Jezebel bombing, is out the window. He doesn't know it yet, but that plan isn't going to come to pass. So it'll be interesting to see how Mayday pivots to come up with something. I assume that they're going to have a certain amount of stuff in place. You know,
okay, I have an idea.
Okay.
All right, so here's my idea. Going back to the section of the episode when June ends up at Serena Joy's. What a shocker,
The
right?
funnest sleepover in New
Oh
Bethlehem.
my God, doing each other's hair, having, snacks, whatnot. No, this is not that kind of sleepover. In fact, this is the kind of sleepover where we're going to vent about boys and have a whole discussion about if we're doing the right things.
We're going to draw mustaches on each other's faces.
If you fall asleep first. Okay, so now here's the thing. Now, I thought it was a little comic relief with that little conversation between June and Serena Joy when June has to make up this lie that she came and was trying to plead with Nick to come to Alaska, which was like, even I felt embarrassed for her to have to be saying this. Like, I felt like this is humiliating that you're having to be like, well, I snuck all the way into this country to beg this guy to come with me to hang out with my husband, like all this. And like Serena Joy's face, like, I love it that she like believes the lie, but is so incredulous. Like she's like, June, what in the world did Luke think of this? And like, what? You can't be thinking this.
That's
he
so
has
selfish.
a wife
His
and
responsibilities.
he's got all these things. He's like, I love that she just like fell right into the lie so fully and didn't question it at all, and instead like admonished June and everything. Like the whole thing was like so wacky to me. But that conversation was chilling by the end because that little interaction, and I'm not going to say it verbatim, but it's basically Serena Joy saying, well, if you think that I'm like this high-ranking woman in this society that you despise, then aren't you being awfully foolish to be like speaking to me this way? And in that moment, it almost felt like the air was like ripe for like a face slap. Like it was coming. Like you could feel it. You could see them both stiffen. Like, I swear to God, you slap my face, I'm gonna slap your face. Like you could tell there was something there that to me was like, oh shit. The old Serena Joy, the blood is just pumping through her body. Now, we knew this the last couple episodes. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
That she was feeling all that power again. She was feeling all that rejuvenation of like, I've got this calling. I've got this bigger, important mission and all this. Okay. But personally, between her and June, they had kind of stayed in that peer dynamic a little bit longer. But now, real quick, Serena Joy was pulling her rank card pretty hard. And I don't know how June slept that night, to be honest with you. I don't know how she had her back turned to the door, the way she was sleeping and everything. I am sorry, but I probably would have slept on the floor on the opposite side of the bed from the door so that if she came in, like, I would have a couple seconds to like hear her come in before she realized where I was in the room. Because I'm sorry, I just don't trust that situation. Like, would you have like hunkered down, slept like a baby in Serena Joy's PJs?
Well, I mean, it is like a tense little truce that they have.
But it is so tenuous. I mean, come on.
I mean, think of that, what you just described, and then she gets sold out by Nick in the morning after the speech about be careful how you talk to me in my house.
Yeah. June needs to get the F out of Dodge, dude. I mean, I think she was dealing with some sort of kinder, gentler Gilead in a way that was like, June, you're sort of like not seeing the danger for what it is. Like Serena Joy could flip out at any second, and I felt it. I mean, there was like, I really thought there was a chance she was going to slap June. I really did.
In this conversation, though, June gets a chance to take her foot off the gas, and she takes it.
I don't think she got the. I don't think she got the chance. I think that Serena took her foot and took it off the gas pedal and put it back down, and was like, "You're in my backyard. You don't get to have the foot on the pedal at all." The end. Like, I think it was so much more serious than that. Now, one lighthearted moment that I thought that was interesting, and I think is going to give us a little bit of nuggets about like what could be coming, was I was happy that Rita like showed up on the scene. Like that little nice breakfast was actually kind of sweet, that Serena was like, I thought maybe you'd like to see Rita. Now, I think probably bigger, longer term, the idea of bringing Rita over, if I'm Serena Joy, is probably to eventually lure June back to New Bethlehem. Somehow say like, hey, look, here's your good friend. Look how great she's doing in New Bethlehem. That to me would be like long con for Serena Joy. Okay.
Oh man. Like dangling her, you mean?
Yeah. Like basically saying like, this is somebody who is equivalent to you. And now look, she's like come back into this situation. Now, for all of you who are saying Rita wasn't a handmaid, no, I totally agree. But I'm trying to say, like, to Serena Joy, she doesn't give a shit the difference between a Martha and she don't care. She don't care. Okay. So she's basically, to me, it was like bringing over this friend and being like, look at your friend. Your friend's doing such a good job. But I think there was an interesting conversation about the fact that Rita works at the bakery and that Serena Joy throws out there that wouldn't it be great if Rita could make the wedding cake? And when we're all sitting around,
throws out, well, we could use your help.
Yes, if you add that together, that's at a separate part. But if you add that back together, yes. To me, if you take those two little nuggets, then to me, it's like, oh, okay, I see where we're going. It's like Red Wedding, right?
Close. Yeah.
Okay, where it's like you have to think of where's a place where everybody's going to be at the same place at the same time, have their guard dropped because they're here for a happy occasion between Wharton and Serena Joy.
Yeah.
So where could you get everybody at the same place at the same time? It would be very like Fred's funeral where it's like all the, bigwigs are there. Everybody's there. I mean, you could have a great group of people. And if you have somebody on the inside who's making the food, now this has all come up before. Again, if you go back and you actually like pay attention to the little details, the idea of poisonings came up back in Jezebels.
Yep.
And they said, but now everything is tasted at Jezebels. So they've laid some groundwork to us for audience members to be like, think about poison. Think about ways that you could get to the commanders that they haven't thought of. And if for whatever reason, Rita is now ingratiated herself to these people in a way that they trust her, Serena Joy at least trusts her, she is in pole position to create mass havoc.
Interesting.
Now, I don't know if they could get away with true poison to kill, like meaning like, I don't know if you could get away with taking one bite and the person like dies on the floor. You can't get away with that because then only like the 3 or 4 people who ate a little bit of cake before the first person dies, Right. So it's got to be something that is either like
irradiated cake or something that.
Or something that takes a little longer or maybe just slows them down even. Maybe, I don't even know. Like being able to put some medication in it or something like that maybe would make you groggy or brain foggy or something that would make you easier to take down.
Interesting.
I don't think that it'll be the thing that kills them. Why do I say that? Because remember we met the wife and you guys, I'm so terrible for forgetting her name and I'm so sorry because she was a really important wife. But they showed a flashback of her with Lydia when she was like in the birthing place or whatever, when she was in the hospital. That one. Do you remember her? Remember how she was poisoning her husband? She had the herbs and all this stuff in her home.
Not hemlock, but it was.
I know. I was going to say hemlock too, but you're right. But it doesn't matter. It's like it's some sort of plant.
Nightshade?
It's some sort of plant that she was using. But she didn't kill him. She just kept him kind of
loopy.
Yeah.
She needed a man there.
Right. But see what I'm saying? They've laid the groundwork for this idea of like, you didn't kill them, but you somehow get them off balance, right? Somehow, take them down a couple notches, however that's done. I think that's Rita's path. And I think that that's part of Mayday's bigger plan. And I think Serena Joy's wedding makes sense to be the place where there's complete chaos for a lot of reasons. For one thing, if you want to talk about turning Serena Joy for evil, true evil, fuck up that woman's wedding day. Fuck it up and watch her turn to the most vile witch you've ever seen. I mean, if bridezillas exist in the world, Serena Joy is not going to be cool that you did this on her wedding day. So she's going to have extra vitriol about the whole thing.
Interesting. Yeah.
This is just spitballing, but when I look back at these episodes and I look back at all this talk about poison and all the different ways that it was used, I just feel good about this. I feel good about the bakery in general. I mean, it's extra sweet that Serena Joy got the job for Rita at the bakery.
Given what you just said about Serena Joy, and if the show was going to be longer than it is,
more seasons?
Or even more episodes, you could see where it could come back around on her. Like, this is your wedding, this is your baker, et cetera, et cetera. How do we not implicate you in how this all goes down?
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Perhaps. I think she's going to be screaming her freaking head off. So to me, no one's going to point at her and say, oh, you must have been a part of this plan. Because I think she's going to be. And I don't know if that means that Wharton himself could be somebody who goes down. I don't know. I don't know. I know that Mayday had a plan of getting specific commanders, but I don't know that Wharton was actually one of them because he wasn't the group at Jezebels.
No, it never was.
Never was. So he wasn't a part of that group.
And he's not a part of the Boston crowd normally.
Right. So who knows if he's on Mayday's radar exactly? I mean, certainly he should be on June's now. We're only assuming that June's going to get back to the group. I'm assuming she's going to get back to Mayday and everything, though we don't know.
Right.
I mean, Moira made it back apparently with Lawrence, and then Nick was supposed to take her back in the morning, but I mean, we leave off in the closet. So,
yeah.
I mean, you can't get in the car with Nick. You can't get in the car with Nick.
You're going to have some trust issues at this point.
Paul. I'm looking out the window right now because I'm like, oh no, man. You can't get in the car with him again, right? Tell me she's not going to. Tell me she's not going to.
As soon as she gets a chance, I think she's going to...
Do what? Ask who? We are in a big heap of shit, June.
She can't trust him.
And is locked in a closet with him right now.
Serena's probably going to go walk on the beach or whatever.
Well,
with
I think
Wharton.
she's trying to get Wharton out of the house so that they can get leave. Right? This is sitcom 101. She's got to be like, hey, let's go for a walk so that they can get out of the closet and leave. That's the whole dynamic.
With Rita nearby... That's her only
that's true.
phone a friend. Not that Rita has any pull, anything.
I guess she could.
She could get her in like a bakery delivery truck, maybe.
Oh, shut up. Do you think? Are we going to have to do all that?
I don't know.
Oh, my God.
I mean, her cover as a Martha is...
It's weird. I am confused about a couple of things, okay? Gilead can be extremely strict and extremely regimented and extremely precise about things they seem to be doing. Only in theory. Because when we actually see stuff in action, I'm like, why wouldn't that woman who saw Moira and June at Jezebels not immediately recognize that she doesn't know who they are? You guys, we wore masks for like a year. Anybody who lived through COVID. Okay, lots of us had to wear masks for lots of periods of time. You can still recognize people, at least enough to know if you recognize them or not. Yeah. Right? You may not, okay, so I'm confused about what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of loosey-goosiness about this idea of why can you just put on any outfit and wander around the community and people be like, you're not anyone we recognize.
Well, New Bethlehem would be even smaller.
Right.
Yes, there's comings and goings, but still...
I don't even know how much comings and goings there are. I basically think that those people stay on that island or whatever this thing is. We don't really know. If it's a Cape, Peninsula, islands, unclear. But it definitely seems isolated.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know where June goes from here. Honestly, I really don't know. Rita doesn't make a ton of sense. I don't know how you trust Nick. I don't know why Serena Joy... It's like you almost have to get back to Lawrence, I think. I think you have to get back to Lawrence somehow. Ask Serena Joy maybe to call Lawrence or somebody to be like...
I can't go with this guy.
Yeah, but the only trouble is that, here's the other part of that. However you get to Lawrence, whether you ask Nick to get Lawrence or Serena to get Lawrence, then they know you're in cahoots with Lawrence. And Serena Joy and Nick aren't trustworthy. So...
And Serena Joy doesn't have a connection to Lawrence at this point, as far as June, the June Lawrence connection.
You mean she doesn't suspect that there's a connection between those two, or what do you mean?
Yeah.
So far as we know, I guess not. But she lived in his house.
But that's all.
Right. I don't know. This is complicated for her right now. That's an understatement of the year.
Right. Well, and just taking off running isn't gonna...
Oh my God.
Get her far.
That would be idiotic. I should sure hope that doesn't happen. I feel like in a way we're dealing with the highest level people, like Serena Joy and Wharton and Lawrence and June, maybe Rita. I don't know if Rita gets to get counted in this or not, but we're dealing with the highest, Nick could be up here, people in a way that it sort of like has drowned out all of the people who would be the everyday people who would recognize something out of the ordinary. The only time that we touched on what I'm trying to say is in the no man's land part, when those two guards came up on Nick and June and all them. And, you know, that's the situation I'm talking about. That should happen more. These people who have barely any power at all, they're just walking around monitoring stuff, should be happening upon these people more often. There should have to be more explanation about who they are, why they're there, who they're there with. Or maybe they should have come up with some sort of like, I don't even know, some sort of extra little thing, like have like a pass card that they just show that says like, I'm allowed to be walking in this neighborhood, or whatever it is that could explain away why there's no like low level, almost just like a policeman. You know, I'm not talking about the military, but just like a security guard level person who's just supposed to just be walking around, making sure everything's okay. We're not having those interactions anymore. Remember when the handmaids would walk 2 by 2 to go to the shopping and do that stuff? Do you remember all the low-level security people who were around?
Yep.
We haven't seen them all season, with the exception of the No Man's Land 2 guys.
New Bethlehem might not have that same kind of thing, or at least not as
like
openly.
Wouldn't like a Paul Blart, Mall Cop, Sitch make sense?
Yeah.
Where he's just riding around, making sure everything's cool in the neighborhood. Nothing huge. I'm not talking about, like I said, machine guns and stuff. But like, I think it would be more realistic if there would be a couple more of those low-level people that we bounce into. Maybe this is silly. Maybe this is like such a small plot thing. But you have to convince me how you keep people in line. To me, you have to have more of those checkpoints.
Well, like you said, we're focusing on these few people. This is the end of the story. They have 5 seasons of establishing the police state that they live in.
That's true. I guess I'm going back to like oh my gosh. I'm remembering like with the kids, we read like a lot of World War II books. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's just one book and it's killing me that I'm not remembering the name of it. It's something with stars is in the name of it.
Is it Occupied France where it takes place?
No. This one is they're in the Netherlands.
Oh.
Is the one I'm thinking of.
Well, it's still occupied area, though.
Yes, but the main thing is that how many checkpoints those little kids always had to go past. How many times they were asked for their papers or their ID or their whatever. And it happened all the freaking time. They couldn't even walk to school. They couldn't do an errand. They couldn't do anything without being asked to show who they are all the time. And so when I'm thinking about that, and that's my only real good touch base for this story, because I don't read the same dystopian society stuff that you do. When I think about those stories, that's what I think about, because those kids were always so frightened. They were always being sort of like roughed up by these low-level security guards. They weren't really anybody. They were almost just neighborhood kids who were just a little older than them, who had been given a little bit of power. So I guess what I'm wondering is, do those people exist? And if they do, are they going to create a barrier for June? Or is this going to be a situation where June's just like back at Mayday? And we don't really explain how in the world she did it or what happened.
I think the next episode has got to pick up like 5 seconds after this episode ends.
Like them staring at each other in the closet still?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah.
I don't even know what the next conversation is. What is the next conversation after you leave, after you're hiding in a closet
Nick's gonna
with
say,
your ex-lover?
I had no choice, and she's going to be like, Zibbit! You have a solid point. She can't just go running. Rita's not much help. Lawrence is too far away.
Somebody would have to be able to get Lawrence to her.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
But I think
Serena's
not the right person for that.
But neither is Nick.
Neither's Nick.
So then who? I don't know. I'm a little lost. To be honest with you, this is a tough one. This is a tough one for me. I like to try to figure out these puzzles. If I'm writing this, how do I write her out of this mess?
If the next episode she just picks up and she's just in that rundown ski chalet with Mayday, that's gonna need some explaining. You know, that's going to be like, what?
I want to see the border. I want to see the border at least once. I want to see the border. I want to see where people have to get across. and what type of questions there are and what you have to do.
Oh, you mean like an official border?
Or something. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like, there's a lot of woods between, Canada and the
We've
U.S.
seen a few of the things you're talking about. Like, remember where the Fred handoff was supposed to take place?
That's the bridge?
It was over a bridge. Yeah.
Yeah, but that bridge is like, I mean, I know there's a line on the bridge. A painted line that equals this side's U.S. and this side's Gilead. I'm talking about like a true border crossing, like with the patrol people there and the sniffing dogs and the whatever. Like at least one time when they're going back and forth, I want to see some display of how Gilead is keeping people in and keeping people out, because I haven't seen it. Not enough.
Like you've mentioned, we've been focusing on these few characters, right?
Yes.
And we've been relying on the world building that took place earlier on in a lot of ways without adding to it. The discussion that Janine and Lydia have.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
About the future of the handmaids and stuff like that. It made me wonder, we haven't actually seen handmaids do their thing in a while. And so I was starting to think, in the way that Lydia was saying that the handmaids would be able to basically retire to the fertility clinic at New Bethlehem, if the handmaid program was actually being phased down as part of just like this changing face of Gilead, where Lydia herself seems really out of step with things. And they've shown us over the seasons, as she's been recovering from one physical mishap or another, that they try to put her out to pasture, but she just keeps poking her nose into things.
I think she feels a great deal, and you say poking your nose, but I mean, I think she feels a great deal of responsibility to the girls because, and I'm saying the girls and everything because that's Lydia's language. But I mean, she really thought that she was doing something noble and important, and that she had basically promised all these girls, if you just do this, then you are going to be like at like the highest echelon of society. Everyone's going to revere you, and it's going to be so great.
Maybe that's the only way like a decent person could become an aunt, is if you're like convincing these other women to use their bodies in this way that they have no control over. However, at the end, you'll be rewarded, is like the only way that you can like rationalize convincing other women to do it.
Yeah.
And so that moment that's betrayed is shattering for that person.
Because it means that you abused these women. It means that you tortured them. It means that you ruined their lives. It means that you were actually a jailer. Lydia doesn't look at herself like that. You know, I mean, hello, she brought cookies. Comfort food, she says.
Right.
Comfort food to a place where women are being held hostage and raped. She brought them comfort cookies.
Mm-hmm.
Lydia. I mean, oh, it's so painful. But what's important to understand is that the brainwashing in a society like this is so multifaceted. It is not just about being a commander and brainwashing this group of men into thinking like we are entitled to this and we deserve this, whatever. It's not just brainwashing the wives. Be submissive, allow this handmaid into your life, handle everything like this. The brainwashing that had to go on with the aunts, that like this is a greater calling and that you are like preparing these women to become these revered special people in our society and everything. Like, there's so many levels of brainwashing that goes on that it's really scary. Like when you think about how complicated it is, because everybody has to believe their part so deeply in order for this all to work. You know, the second anyone starts questioning it, no matter what level you're on, a Martha, a handmaid, even a wife, whatever you are, if you start questioning what role you play anymore, society starts to fall apart. So you have to be so rigid in everybody's exact roles. And now that the handmaids' roles are becoming extremely blurry, you know, we thought this was just about fertility, but actually seems like a lot of these girls are getting raped outside of these marriage ceremony, not marriage, but what did they call them? The ceremony, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Outside of those ceremonies, I mean, we know Fred took June to Jezebels. They busted the roles, you know, and once you did that, it kind of wrecked the brainwashing that could have happened.
Well, and I think the timing of things like girls that were indoctrinated young, like Hannah, are now rolling into that pre-wife age. Remember they were saying that she was wearing it's like that lilac color that indicated she's going to make her debut, or whatever the right terminology is for that.
You could say she's going to be viewed as like a grown-up woman.
Yeah.
Which is all
makes
gross.
her
It
eligible.
makes us all want to barf.
Right. Well, we've seen young wives. We've seen Eden was a pretty young individual.
What was the name of the girl that I'm talking about? That was. It
was Eden, right?
Well, I thought Eden was Sydney Sweeney. That Eden was the one that got her and the boy, and they got killed in the swimming pool with the cement.
You're right. It's that
blocks.
same.
That's Eden.
It's that same portion of the.
It is that same portion
time
of the
frame, though.
Yeah, it is.
It was their farm.
Yes, it was.
And
not Eden's farm.
No, but it was the wife that was turned into a handmaid that poisoned Janine. That
girl, yes.
Girl, very young person.
Very young.
To be a wife. But this is their society. And what I'm thinking is that you get enough of them that are compliant, that are fertile, then you stop needing handmaids and you start having Gilead 1.5 or 2.0.
Well, here's the thing that I'm curious about. Remember like an episode or two ago when Naomi was harassing Lawrence about his virility?
Yes.
I mean, I'm shaking my head at you. Like, was Naomi suggesting that Lawrence have sex with her and then they have a baby together? Because what the fuck? I mean, that's not whether they could create a baby or not is beyond the point. I mean, if you remember, Serena Joy and Fred, they're not supposed to be having sex.
Well, they weren't supposed to be having sex when the handmaid was in the house because things were supposed to be reserved for the handmaid.
Right.
But Lawrence and Naomi don't have a handmaid. And I think we could believe that their relationship...
Do you think Naomi is expecting to have a baby with Lawrence?
No.
What's she yapping about virility for?
Well, I think that they haven't performed husband and wife in
sex. You can say sex, Paul.
I don't think they've had sex. I don't think they've consummated their sham marriage.
But I didn't think that that's what husbands and wives did in Gilead.
No, I think they can.
I remember distinctly a scene, and I can't tell you what season it was, where Serena and Fred were in a closet, like a dressing room thing. And there was a lot of slapping at, like, you can't be doing that. And I get what you're saying because there was a handmaid in the house. Like, I understand all that stuff. But, like, I don't know. I guess, again, this is just one of those world building things that I am unclear on. Like,
that's not my side of it.
Don't get it.
This is a society that built a pillar of their entire worldview on creating children.
Right.
So wives and husbands having sex, I think, is okay outside of that handmaid setup.
And I'm just saying I haven't seen that play out on screen where anybody's been okay with that. So that's where I'm like, I don't quite know what that was about. I don't know. I don't mean to get us off track going back to an older episode, but it just made me wonder a little bit again about these distinct roles and like how you're starting to blur things more. And like if husbands and wives are supposed to be, it's a little confusing, frankly, what the role of the wives are. I'm going to be really honest with you. Like, I'm not really sure what they're supposed to be doing. I don't really think they mind the children. I think the Marthas and stuff do. I'm not clear what the wives do.
I think they are supposed to take an active hand in managing the house, and that includes the children and that kind of thing. But remember, the part of the setup with the handmaids, anyway, was trying to mask that the men were the problem.
Yeah, Fred was definitely the problem.
The virility thing that you just mentioned, they weren't. They shooting blanks as a group.
With the Waterford situation, I guess there's a very specific situation there because do you remember that Serena actually got shot in the belly? Remember that whole thing?
Yeah.
So their situation was a little bit different when it came to fertility because I don't know if they were ever implying that was sort of like a problem. I kind of think they were. I know that there's speculation about Noah and who his father is. I know people have questioned whether it was like Mark or Nick or somebody else, but Bruce Miller, the showrunner, has said, no, it's definitely Fred. So even though there was a lot of suggestion, to your point, that the commanders, a lot of them were shooting blanks, I guess Fred, I mean, he made Noah, right? But that whole thing was the crux of why Serena brought June to Nick, was because the whole thought process was that Fred was infertile.
Right, yeah.
It's hard. It's hard here to know. It's with all the testing that they can do and all the medical stuff that they do have, you'd think that they would just start sorting out who was fertile and who was not. You know what I mean?
I think with the virility thing that you mentioned about the commanders and their pride relying on it, that's like a question. You know how you don't want to ask a question that you know the answer to, or something. What is that thing where?
Yeah,
it's like that. It's like they don't want to know, especially if they're the one. If they've managed to find themselves in a high position, then all of a sudden they get a sperm count that's like, I don't know. Then does that result in them losing position, or would you rather just nobody ask?
Well, nobody's going to ask. I mean, that's why and that's why it's a sham, right? That's why it's a sham, because if it was really about making kids and it wasn't about a bunch of egos, you would do fertility testing on everybody. You'd find out who's actually fertile.
You could be pretty scientific about it if
you
you needed to be.
You could be extremely scientific about it, yes. And you could know. And so, yeah, it's all about that. This is just a sham. It's about power and control. It was never about kids. It was never about wives. It was never about virility. It's about control. It's about power. And let's talk about what we think might be coming up. We discussed a little bit, some predictions. I think Rita is our inside man, because Nick kind of brushed her off and was like, it's going to take some weeks. And so
years. He said a couple of years.
I thought, even though she said, yes, of course, I'll be patient and stuff, to me, I thought she didn't feel like he was going to help her really.
And there could be something that happens in the next episode or two that makes her impatient, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Maybe access to the sisters cut off. Maybe something with the sisters' life goes haywire thanks to this stupid government,
Yeah.
Any number of things could make her be like, you know what? I should act, because there's no guarantee about a couple years from now.
I mean, all that has to happen is June has to say, Nick totally squealed about the plan. And then Rita's going to be like, I can't trust Nick, right?
Right.
And so then that would just be enough to end it all, right? Okay, so is there anybody else? Lydia, Janine, I mean, what do you think is going to happen with Jezebels? What do you think? Now we hear Wharton says that he's gotten Jezebels like closed down and he's like thrilled with himself. And so if Jezebels is closed down, where's Janine and what's going to happen with all of them?
Gilead has a way of dealing with its problems that usually involves gallows and machine guns and things.
You think it's going to be all like that?
Unless someone can intervene. And maybe is Lydia got enough sway to do that for a girl or two? Maybe.
I mean, I don't think Janine is out of the mix yet. It feels like she's still, I mean, when I say inside man with Rita, we still got Janine and potentially Lydia. She's at least a potential.
Janine, when she exploded on Lydia, it gave me like a sense of, what's the argument about the devil you know? Mm-hmm. Like Jezebels is the devil she knows at this point. When she's like, don't help, stop helping me, quit helping. Because every time it's like her life gets a little worse or a lot worse in the case of Gilead forming at all. Mm-hmm. At least Jezebels, it sucks. It definitely sucks. But she knew what each day was going to look like sucking.
I don't know. There was that one part when they're walking down the hall and they kind of like glanced into like a room. Shaking my head at you.
It's a bad deal.
Yeah. I mean, but my whole thing is more that like the commanders are going to let a Jezebels go. Like, aren't they going to just open up another one somewhere else in like a day? I mean, and like, why wouldn't you just move those girls over there?
Jezebels was born of the Gilead 1.0 ideology.
So if we have to get rid of everything, certainly not something that Lawrence wants around. I mean, I think he'd like Jezebels to be gone for a lot of reasons for himself.
Yeah, the little coffee clatch of commanders commiserating to destroy him. No,
the whole thing, but just him himself. I mean, he doesn't want to go there, and he doesn't want to hang out there or anything. So I think he'd be like happy for all that to go. So I think you're right that it could definitely be on its permanent way out. I don't know what that means for Janine. I do think Lydia has the power to maybe save her. And for the story, I think we do need Janine to stick around. It would be really crazy to just lose her in like a mass situation, you know, like if they burn it down or if they do something like that, you know, like it would be crazy that she would just be like one of a bunch.
We followed June very closely this whole time, but I think Janine's story's a little more tragic, and maybe it's just because of the mental fragility that she's had and then regained some strength. But the peaks and valleys for Janine, I think, are wider than they are for June, and that makes her just more like, you'd hate to see it just end as like a narrative, just
I agree.
Lined up on the wall and shot.
I agree with that. I don't want that for Janine at all. This is going to be so hard because when this season ends, like, I mean, we know the Testaments are coming, and so we know there's another series behind this, and we know, and listeners, I'm sorry if I'm bursting any bubbles, but because there's the Testaments, we know Gilead is not going to fall at the end of this season. We know that. And I'm not telling you guys that because I've read the book or anything like that. I'm telling you that because we know the Testaments are coming, and we know that Gilead persists into that series. So, shoot, I mean, I don't want any of these people to die, but lots of them have to. I mean, lots of them have to moving forward. This is Caroline.
And this is Paul. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you found it. Please leave us a rating and a review. And if it's good, we'll even read it on the podcast. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.
Pod Clubhouse.